Now you compare that to, let's say, going and dealing with the FDA. Now you enter this tunnel and you're not underneath like TSA jurisdiction. You're underneath them for only like a few hours, the plane flight, and then you're out. FDA jurisdiction, you're under them for like 10 years. And you can't make jokes. You can't complain about them during this time frame. Many entrepreneurs don't even realize what they're in for until they, are faced with it. And especially until the mid 2010s, until like the rise of social media, entrepreneurs couldn't talk about it, because if you did, you know what happened? FDA would retaliate. Okay. And that is actually like literally they have on their website like non-retaliation policy. Again, the whole thing is optimized products. Would you have to have a non-retaliation policy if you weren't retaliating, right? There's various like FDA consultants around like the early 2010s that would tell you not to speak up on like phone calls, with the FDA or whatever, because they take names or whatever. They're looking for those who are supporting and so on. And just to kind of support this, just if you want a book length treatment of this, you should read Reputation and Power by Daniel Carpenter, okay? And if you just skim like the first few chapters, this guy is an FDA sympathizer, but he's honest enough to include direct quotes from the executives in regulated industry. And essentially what happened was all the vim and vigor, all the people who had that heroic attitude of the entrepreneur, all the guys who were in it for the wonder drugs, all of them had the life beaten out of them over the mid 20th century by the FDA. And if you didn't have the FDA as your first customer, and by the way, they omit they call it just FDA. That's like the insider way of talking. So if you did not obey FDA, you basically lost your job as an executive, because FDA could basically just, flick a wrist like this and just delay or stop all of your drugs. And because everybody trusted their judgment, you're just dead. You're reputationally dead. So this is why, for example, and I'll get to the Bitcoin part in a second, when you get a vial of drugs, okay, like from, the pharmacy, what's in there? It's like a wadded up chemistry textbook. The user interface on that is horrible. Okay. I can understand that. Like, I know what, benzene rings or whatever are. Okay. But like, you have to sit down with a magnifying glass and it's like 3,5 fluoro, this and that, the average person has no concept of what this is. Why is the user interface that bad? Most people haven't even thought about why it's that bad. It's that bad because the FDA makes it that bad. That is the right. It's like the financial disclosure, gibberish that has to be there on websites, right? This is something where there's enough cruft that's accumulated that lawyers will tell you, do this and you're safe. And, the alternative to that, by the way, is like, there's this company called like Help, I Need Help. And they just package the drugs differently. It's like, okay, help, I have a headache, and they've got this. Help, I have, they package it differently. Another version of this is like PillPack, where they got people to actually take drugs more consistently by changing the UX, where you print out like labels, and then you just actually have the drugs like individual serving size in each one, rather than having them all in one pharmaceutical box, so you can remember whether you took it or not, right? So like UX is actually just like one area you could innovate on. People don't even think you can innovate on this stuff, right? You can innovate on formulation, all this sort of stuff. Point is, the era of, do you know who Banting and Best were?
No.
Okay, Banting and Best, the era of Banting and Best, they, you Google them, they won the Nobel Prize. How'd they win the Nobel Prize? In the early 1900s, they came up with the idea that insulin supplementation could help treat a form of diabetes. And they came up with the concept, and they, tested it on like dogs, and they tested it on themselves, and then they tested it on like a patient who like sprung up from the bed like Eureka, and they iterated on the formulation the whole time, and it was just willing doctor, willing patient. And it was like just a few years from when they came up with the concept to when like Eli Lilly had scaled production for the entire North American continent. Okay, that was a time when pharma moved at the speed of software. Okay, when you went from concept to like scale in like a couple of years, the wonder drug era, right? Now, here's the thing. With that level of innovation also comes risk and downside. So what happened there were things like elixir of sulfanilamide. There were things like, many decades later, like thalidomide and so on, which had these huge outcries around them that led to people being risk intolerant and locking the whole process down, right?